Hello, welcome to the United Stand. Jose Mourinho concedes the Premier League title? Question mark. Is Jose Mourinho's Manchester United title dream over? In his own words, 8 points is 8 points. It certainly is, Jose. And I'll tell you what, if I was Manchester United and I was 8 points clear at the start of November, I'll be very disappointed in May if we gave that up. I'm not saying it's over because 8 points can be done, but is it over in the context of what Manchester United are and have become under Jose Mourinho? Are we title winners, or are we in a top four race? I'm joined by Ross. I'm joined by Drawty. It must be a bad result. But we've got lots to talk about. We'll be talking about Morata versus Lukaku. We'll be talking about sacking Mkhitaryan, as some fans want to do. We'll be talking about 4 games, 4 points. That's what facts are. This international break that we came back from, 4 points from 4 games. However you dress it up, is that good enough? But Drawty's on, so we'll let him on first as a guest. What went wrong with Manchester United today, in your opinion?
Good evening, Mark. How are we?
I'm good, thank you.
To be honest with you, I think it's kind of been ever since the international break. I think Manchester United have just come back lacking ideas, ambition, drive. I think the players just aren't working at the moment. I generally blame the international break beforehand. Today was just another example of the players just not giving enough. Mkhitaryan looks completely lost out there, which is a shame because he was looking a good player sort of at the turn of the year. But to be honest, at the moment, I just think there's a lack of cohesion. I think personally we've got a squad of squad players rather than a decent first 11. I know there's a lot of fans out there who say, look, we've got very good players, and when Pogba and Zlatan come back, we will be title challengers. As you've just said at the top of the show, 8 points adrift already after 11 games. To make that up is going to be a bit of a task. The last time we did anything like that was was that the 2013 season where we turned around 8 points and then lost it at the very death against Manchester City when Aguero scored. It can be done, but for me right now, it wasn't a good game today. Manchester United are just all over the place, and I think maybe the team are lacking confidence.
Yeah, I think, look, obviously done the match reaction, done the watch along, and I just felt, Ross, in the last hour, I'm surprised. I think if you'd said to me at the start of the game we'd lose this game, I think I'd be in a different frame of mind tonight. But I listened to what Mourinho had to say, and the 8 points is 8 points thing. I think that's code for that's going to be very, very difficult. But I don't care if it's 15 points. You know, we've pulled 12 points gaps from Newcastle in the past. It can be done. I'm more looking over my shoulder now. We're 1 point ahead of Chelsea, 4 against Arsenal and Liverpool, level with Spurs. And I think the problem is, I don't know. We spoke at half time. I don't understand. It's like progress. Like last season at Chelsea, we lost it in the first 10 minutes. This season, we got to half time and then we lost it in the first 10 minutes of the second half. I don't know how it went so wrong. I think I'm slightly shocked. But actually, I admit, we deserve to lose. And I think we should have lost by 2 or 3 in the second half. I think Chelsea were wasted.
Yeah, you're right. Which was really frustrating. I don't really get it. I don't know what's going on. I think you can try and blame the injuries, but we shouldn't be so reliant on one man. We're not. You don't win a Premier League being a one-man team. I think that's only happened once, and that was with Van Persie at United. So something's not right, and I'm going to put it down to, again, I'm not blaming Jose. I'm going to go back to the lack of support that he got in the transfer window, to be honest, because if you look at the clubs around him, you look at what City do, they buy 3 players for one position, and we're still trying to bolster up. And it's a shame that when people take United's calculations of their transfer business into consideration, they're taking everything that Van Gaal did and Moyes to a point in consideration, and Jose Mourinho was lumbered with that, and a lot of them players he probably didn't want. He sold a lot of them already, and because of that, I think he's not being backed fully in the transfer window, and it just goes to show you that we thought he was heavily backed with Pogba, but in the grand scheme of things, that's a small piece of business nowadays. So we need to back it in January massively. And I think I read something on Twitter as well, which we can't take lightly on. Is I think Ander Herrera and Mata are both in a position where they can sign pre-contracts with other clubs in as little as a month's time.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's so much to talk about. I mean, what I want to sort of try to whiz through it all, and that's an important point. And I've certainly laboured it a lot, and people didn't want to listen on August the 31st because they wanted to get lost in the optimism of winning the first 3 games of the season and beating teams 4 and 5-0. But I do, as I said, Drawty, the reality is, and you touched on it there, the international break. It's almost like another step forward in regulation. There is progression because last year we collapsed after the first international break. This year we've collapsed after the second international break. Like I said, last year we collapsed in the first 10 minutes against Chelsea. This year we got to half time and then we collapsed in the first 10 minutes of the second half. So there's progression, but we're still making the same mistakes. As I said, 4 points from Liverpool away, Chelsea away, Spurs at home and Huddersfield away. It sort of falls into the trap of what a lot of our rivals were saying. You haven't played anyone yet. And then we have played teams and we've come unstuck.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. When you just touched on the international break right then, Rodney made a very, very good point on Twitter. He fully expects Lukaku to score 2 international goals for Belgium now. And you can kind of see his point to a degree. It's 4 points from 4 games since the international break is poor for Manchester United. But we shouldn't lose focus of the fact that exactly what Ross said a minute ago in terms of not being backed. Maybe it's a case of the chickens are coming home to roost again. We got out of the blocks really, really early. We were banging in the goals and we're thinking, yes, we're going to be champions. Reality is seldom like that. And unfortunately, at the moment, it just seems we've run out of steam and ideas. And now we are playing the bigger teams like Liverpool and Chelsea. We're just not doing it. Some people point to the Champions League and say, look how well we're doing. But when you look at our Champions League group, it's about as easy as it's going to get. And then you compare us to Manchester City. City are steamrolling Napoli, and Napoli are absolutely flying in Serie A. On the point of City, and people going, they'll fall apart. They are battering everyone at the moment, and we can't take it away from them. We can't say they're a bunch of bottle jobs and they'll fall away. They just won't. You look at the results they're getting at the moment. The only team who has beaten Manchester City since the 1st of July, when the season officially starts pre-season, is Manchester United. And that was the first game of pre-season. That is it. They have beaten everyone else, and I think they've only had 1 draw. That's the difference. So catching City this season is going to be a monumental task.
We spoke on the preview when the team news came in because City were playing Arsenal, and I think they had a couple of decisions go their way. I was moaning at United fans who were saying, in fair, you've got to sit back and applaud Man City. I won't do that because I am Manchester United through and through, and I don't. To me, it's like giving credit to Liverpool, which I just won't do. But what I will do, and what I did in that game today, Ross, is I've been saying United can win the title, but I've always said it's just based on a stat that Mourinho always wins the title in the first 2 years. I think that stat's going to go, and it's not because. I think somebody could challenge Man City, and I hope Spurs do, because I want somebody to make it interesting. I don't think we can. I think there's lots of reasons why. I don't think we can. And I think it comes down to what you just said there. But look, people are going absolutely mad in the live comments saying, Mark, United stand, whatever, you will not have anything bad said against Mourinho. Mourinho is at fault. There was actually something that, I don't know whether I wrote it down, but look, a Chelsea fan basically on the video we did earlier said, look, got a lot of time for Mourinho, very, very good manager, but I'm glad he's gone, even if Conte goes, because the problem with Mourinho is he makes it about Mourinho and not about the club he's managing. He stood outside the tunnel before the game, shaking hands with the Chelsea players he wanted to shake hands with, and when Hazard walked past, he put his hands in his pockets. What a motivator that would have been to Eden Hazard before the game's been picked. Mourinho shouldn't be getting involved in that. He shouldn't be motivating the opposition with little petty wars. He's a Manchester United manager. I'm glad he's not a Chelsea manager anymore. I mean, I suppose I don't want to blame Mourinho at all for this game today, but I wasn't aware of that until I read the comments. It is sort of like, why are you doing that to their best player?
I did find that a bit strange. Just shaking hands with any player. You do all that stuff after the game. You go see players that you want to see. You don't do it before. And he knows that the camera was on him there. He knows that the world's watching. Found that a little bit strange, but he does strange things. But a lot of these fans that want to blame Jose all the time are the same fans that, you know, will applaud when he gets results like 1-0 at Tottenham, you know, and we are fickle, and a lot of fans don't want to. They want to praise him, they want to slate him. I'm just on a level field. I'm happy he's our manager, and again, today's result, I think. Actually, Jose did the anti-Jose thing today, and in hindsight, he probably should have just sat back and parked the bus, but he kind of went the other way.
Do you think that's
dangerous?
dangerous?
That he did.
Do you think that's dangerous?
It
because
is.
He will now think, well, I tried not to park the bus. I didn't park the bus and I lost it. Next time I'll park the bus.
No, not so much, because I actually think that he was desperate for 3 points today, and which is why he went all out. And I think that in his Mourinho
calculation, target in the whole game.
Yeah, well, that's the players did that, not him, because I think the selection and the formation and the way we played was right. It just didn't work, did it? But that was Mourinho's all out, and it was annoying that you know, we waited till the last 3 minutes to actually get our heads together and play. And a lot of guys have been slating Fellaini today, and I get it, but. He
Really?
shouldn't have played today. Oh, mate, he's been absolutely slandered for his performance. And to be honest, he touched the ball 4 times and he gave it away 4 times, but he didn't look ready today. And it's the same reason that I'm pleased Pogba didn't play, because he probably would have done the same thing.
I'll tell you what, this is a world first on the United stand. How can Fellaini be criticised? He only trained yesterday. I know he nearly gave a second. In fact, he nearly gave 2 goals away, and he was ridiculously rusty, and maybe was a bit thick for putting himself in the firing line when he clearly wasn't fit. But Mourinho publicly applauded him because he actually got himself back. I suppose in a way that's the problem with Manchester United, isn't it? We're trying to win a game and we bring Fellaini and Lingard on. I mean, that is a problem. But the big problem I felt, Draughty, was Mkhitaryan. We'd spoken about him all week. We've been speaking about him all month. It's not a witch hunt. He's just very, very bad in a Manchester United shirt. And I think I don't blame Mourinho for the team capitulating in the first 10 minutes of the second half. But I do blame him for playing Mkhitaryan. He is a bottler. He will not go into 50-50 tackles. He looks lost. He looks like he's lacking confidence. I think he's Kagawa Mark II. He's a very good player in Europe, but he can't handle the Premier League. People are writing eulogies, rest in peace, Mkhitaryan. I don't necessarily think that's true, because I know Mourinho and how stubborn he is. But Mkhitaryan, problem for you, or is he right to be played in these sort of games?
Mkhitaryan, I mean, he was brilliant for Shakhtar Donetsk. He was great for Borussia Dortmund, and then he comes over here. First couple of months, he looked a bit questionable, and then he came into the fore. The only thing I would say about Mkhitaryan is every time he's kind of played a big club in England, he has fallen away. Even last season, we were saying he was great in the smaller games, but when it came to the crunch, he never quite did it. So your point on him being a bottler, maybe he should play for Arsenal. That's a joke. But I think the thing is with United, it's not just Mkhitaryan, and we shouldn't make scapegoats. I'm looking at the squad in total, and you look through some of the players and you think, are you really the top quality? And this isn't Manchester United quality, because I think the whole Manchester United quality is it's a phrase I don't like, because it depends on your club at the time, and it makes us think that we're always entitled to the title, like we should always win it. You have to have the right players, and at the moment, the top players, you could only really say De Gea walks into any team in the world. Paul Pogba on his day, he's an absolute beast. But then after those two, you got players like Bay, and Bay is clearly a very, very competent centre back. Can be culpable of a few mistakes here and there, but if he had a better partner, then we would be solid in that department too. So when you start going through the squad and you go like Lingard, yeah, he's a local lad. It's great to have a local lad in the team. There's nothing wrong with that. You need your squad players. Fellaini, Young, Smalling, Jones, Darmian, Blind, Lindelof, Mkhitaryan, Ander Herrera, Luke Shaw. All these players, ask yourself honestly, are they starting 11 or are they squad players or are they surplus to requirements? And that's the thing that I think we need to look at ourselves is, we always want to have blind faith in our players, and that's a very, very good thing to have. And you always want to be positive, but you got to be realistic sometimes. And I just look at those guys and I think, I'm not sure.
Flex United stand.
Yeah, sorry, I was just doing something else while I was listening there. Yeah, I mean, look, Mkhitaryan wasn't at fault for the goal. Nothing to do with him. The goal was I think hits the nail on what you're saying there. It was collectively, but I didn't think Mkhitaryan was very good in the first half. I thought he was a passenger, but second half, every single player for that first 5 to 10 minutes, we were talking on the watch along and saying we're on the ropes. We are on the ropes. They're going to score, and they did score because the players just left their heads in the dressing room. In relation to Mkhitaryan, I think it's such an important position, but we've had this discussion for 2 or 3 years now. Rooney wasn't very good in the number 10 position. It sort of feeds into why Rashford and Lukaku were poor today as well, and they were dreadful, but they didn't really get any decent ball. Lukaku is now lacking confidence because he's a striker and he's not scoring goals. But you are a big fan of Phil Jones, I know, Ross. I'm just gonna have a quick scan of the live comments, and as I say this, because I don't know whether people have actually established who was at fault for the goal. Because for me, it was 100% Phil Jones. Matthew McFadden, thanks for the contribution. He says it's sad when Mourinho trusts Fellaini, who was trained for 1 day, to be in his squad over Paul Pogba, who is 100 times the player Fellaini is and has been training for a week in such a huge game. Interesting. The Pogba thing we just don't know anything about. You can't blame Jose when you have you can't blame Jose with have no number 10. The players are not good enough, Lee Palmer. Well, you could do if he hasn't got a number 10. He's been there for a year. Poor, boring Man United fans supporting a crap team, says Naby Keita. I presume you are a Liverpool fan with a username of a player who's not even at your club for another year. Oh dear. Mark, we lost because of the midfield battle, 2v3, says Paul Taylor. That's exactly what Gary Neville said, actually, Ross. And I'll just come back to that because I think that's more relevant than having a go at Phil Jones, who was so culpable for the goal. Gary Neville said Manchester United got killed in the midfield, but the worrying thing is that Mourinho said exactly the same thing after the Liverpool game 3 weeks ago, where he said we got killed in the midfield because I've got nothing on the bench. Well, he certainly had nothing on the bench today. If he's got to play Fellaini after 1 day's training, why? You know, we've been on about this for ages that Matic and Herrera are running on empty, having to play League Cup games and then league games every 3 days. What's happened to our midfield? I mean, we're only missing Pogba.
Yeah, I'm going to give him Jose a bit of rare criticism for that because it's his own fault. Even though Pereira wanted to go on loan, shouldn't have let him go. And also, you don't just have 2 midfielders, Jose. Tuanzebe's on. You know, he's around. He's played in midfield. He's shown how strong he is against players like Sanchez. Play him rather than being completely outbalanced in midfield. That was his own fault, and that was all down to him. He cannot blame injuries. He can't blame Pereira. He has to blame himself because he's the manager of that squad. And I've just picked Tuanzebe out, but there's others. You know, you could possibly have played McTominay today because he doesn't look out of depth, and he's just been another body in the midfield, to be honest. But he decided not to go for that, and we kind of spoke about it in the pre-game that Herrera's not going to be able to mark Hazard because if he drops out of midfield, then Matic is literally on his own. So that was never going to happen. So we were short, and Jose needs to wake up to that and stop playing the players that are like bumming him all the time. He needs to play the players that look at the youth, because Mkhitaryan, I guarantee, will continue to play for this United team, and the longer he plays, you know, it's kind of like your statement about Fellaini a few years ago. As long as Mkhitaryan is getting picked in our team, we won't win anything because he's not good enough. He's absolutely not good enough. And I would have rather seen McTominay play today, and I don't even rate him.
Yeah, I mean, draw to in relation to Manchester United and this result today and where it leaves us. What's your? It's a difficult question, I know, but that's what we do on here. What's the future for Manchester United over the next 8 months and beyond? Do you see that the progression's there, that eventually we are going to win titles and you know, both domestically and in Europe, or do you think that we are destined for sort of 2 steps forward, 1 back, 2-1 back, and eventually either Mourinho or United will get tired of it and a change will happen before we achieve what we thought we'd achieve under Mourinho?
I think the trouble is, Jose's obviously a very, very, very successful manager. He has the pedigree, he has the trophies behind him, and you would like to think that Manchester United have got enough faith in him to think he can turn this round and become dominant again. However, the playing field has very much changed. If we go back to the days of Sir Alex, his first 6 years were not anything that people would remember fondly. It took an FA Cup win in the 90s to kind of drag him back out from the late 80s horror show that he was having. Can Jose Mourinho and Manchester United pull it round the last 8 months? Up until the summer. It's a difficult one because when you start looking through the squad, we don't have too much depth in quality. We have depth, that's clear. But in terms of quality, the summer feels like we missed a trick again. And, people always say, the Glazers backed him, they gave him the money. 3 players is not backing your manager. Money is irrelevant at that point. It's bodies you need in the squad. And unfortunately, it's like Neymar. 200 million for one player. Now, if you could justify and say, well, you spent 200 million, you should win the title, but all you've got is one player. Are you going to win the title for one player? Of course you're bloody not. 90 million on Lukaku, and then you bring in Lindelof and my mind's gone. You're just bringing in Matic.
Lindelof,
Sorry,
yeah.
Brain just went then. You're only bringing in 3 players, and we forget that we gave away Depay and Schneiderlin in January. Unfortunately, there's a couple of bodies that we still need to get out, and we still need the quality. And Lukaku, unfortunately, whilst he was looking like an absolute hot prospect at the start of this season, when it comes to the big games, he's just gone missing. He will absolutely smash the smaller teams, which is what you need. However, when it comes to the big games, he's just not there. And Rashford, I love Rashford, but unfortunately, he's a boat without a rudder at the moment. He just runs in straight lines. And you've got to start saying, 3 goals in the last 4 Premier League matches. Unless Pogba comes back and can stay fit for the rest of the season, when Zlatan comes back, if he can get the form he had last season and then help Lukaku out, then yes, I can see a positive end to the season. Right now, however, it kind of feels we're going through the same period as last year. I don't know if you agree with that.
Can I just jump in, Greg?
Yeah. Go.
Just to contradict all the Mourinho haters, I'm not talking to you, Jordy, but for me, I don't feel like he's got anything to turn around, because he was given a project, a plan, and we forget how bad and what a situation we were in under Van Gaal. Like, our club was absolutely trashed. And he turned us around in his first season, won 2 trophies, got us the Champions League. Absolutely job done for me. Yeah. And the second season, all he has to do, really, is challenge for a title, get us somewhere in the Champions League, and continue to boost. And I think a lot of people think that, Jose, he's been given all this money, but we forget the rivals were in a lot better situations than us and have been given, if not more money than us. So their strengthening is probably beyond what we're doing at the minute. That's not Jose's fault. And I think he's actually doing a fantastic job to keep us where we are. It didn't work for him in the summer. He actually only got 2 signings because Lindelof doesn't look like he's up to it, to be honest. To me, I'm not writing him off too early, but come on, he's hardly ever playing. So we got 2 in the end, really. So I think he's doing a monumental job. But the future of Man United, I think, will rely next summer on what we do, because we've got to go absolutely bananas in that market. And that's not on personnel as much, that's on value, because Griezmann's got to come, and I think 2 or 3 more £100 million players need to come in.
Do you think that's going to happen?
Hope so.
Josh Hansen, thanks for the contribution. He says, Mark, would you swap Mourinho for Moyes and Ronaldo? No. Abhinav Shori says, I think Zlatan would be better than Lukaku. It's interesting. We'll be talking about that over the coming weeks, no doubt, when Zlatan comes back. And Cine Space says, a tactical error in this game was Bailly man-marking Hazard. He was completely out of position several times, creating big spaces for Bakayoko. I don't know. The midfield was a mess. It was a mess. I mean, the goal is because Phil Jones just decided to go on a little trip and not bother doing anything. And Smalling had to come across to take the Bakayoko run, which left Morata free. Phil Jones, totally and utterly pub defending, and he's been really good lately, but it's the cycle of Jones. gets fit, does well, gets injured or makes a big mistake, plays well, and it's the circle of Phil Jones. But let's take it back to Lukaku, Ross, that we were talking about there. Big game bottler, poor first touch. We knew these things when we signed him. He's sort of lived up to that. The flat track bully that we know he is, scoring goals for fun. Last few weeks, first touch, lots of fans getting on about that. Big game bottler has to be said. Liverpool, Chelsea, even Spurs, no goals. I'm a big Lukaku fan. I thought today was his worst game in a United shirt because it was against an inexperienced centre-back who dominated him. Cahill I don't really rate, and I don't think him or Rashford worked hard enough against them. I know they didn't get a lot of ball from the number 10, but there was a lot of ball knocked up to them, and I think they were dominated, and I think all the gifts and everything about being in Christensen's pocket are totally deserved. I thought he was very, very poor today, but I do like what Lukaku brings to the team. But I do also feel that he has got to improve on those areas that we've talked about. But he is one of those strikers that needs more than one chance in a game. He had one chance today. The keeper made a good save. He needs more than one chance, which is why he does well against the lesser sides.
I'm going to kind of disagree a little bit. I think I'm going to go with the lack of chances thing. Like, his first touch isn't the greatest, we know that, but that's not where his key skills are. It's running in behind. And when you have a two-man midfield that's been dominated by three all game, they ain't going to get forward and support the strikers. And when you're playing that formation, you need some kind of midfield support. Was Mkhitaryan providing that? Was he, heck? He wasn't even in the game for me. Hasn't been for the last... To be honest, since Lukaku's goal drought started was when Mkhitaryan's lack of form started, and it all kind of gone downhill since. There's no replacement for him. Pogba's injured. And I think... we sound so much like a one-man team, but I'm pinning so much on Pogba coming back because I think the balance is right. And Pogba... we don't give him enough credit for how quickly he can stride up the pitch, and he can be defending 1 minute, supporting the attackers the other, and that's what Herrera and Matic can't do. They're very static. Fellaini's the same, and again, it's the recruitment thing, because why are we relying on Paul Pogba for that? You know, we should have more than one Paul Pogba in our team, and it just absolutely depresses me. And he needs to come back in the January transfer window. That's Pereira, because he's actually a midfielder that's not half bad defensively, and he gets forward. And for me, if he'd stayed, he'd have probably started, half of our Premier League games this season. So what a poor decision that was from not only the club but him himself.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, in the summer, Drawty, I'm quite open about the fact that I didn't want Matic, and he has been a breath of fresh air. Looks very tired at the moment, but I still think he played well today. I wanted Morata. I did want Morata, and I think United wanted Morata. And it's very interesting that today we had Lukaku versus Morata in a way. But I've been saying for weeks, I don't want to go down the road of who's better, Morata or Lukaku. And that was before today's game, because I don't want to say, Lukaku's better than Morata, because I think Morata's a very good striker. And I do like Lukaku. I still wouldn't swap Lukaku for Morata. I'm not going to go down that road. But I did want Morata before Lukaku. Then we got him. Then I've seen what he can do, and I like what he does off the ball. I thought he was poor today. And obviously Morata won the battle, but I think if Lukaku had been given the freedom of London and a header like that, he might have missed it, to be fair, but that's what strikers are paid to do. And I thought Morata played really, really well today. Is there any ground in having a discussion of Morata versus Lukaku, which many people on social media seem to want to go down, which I expected them to do?
To be honest with you, I wanted Lukaku anyway in the summer. I know you very much wanted Morata. I definitely wanted Lukaku. I'm pretty sure Ross wanted Lukaku too.
Did?
Yeah, I remember me and you talking about it, Ross, and it was just a case of, there's a lot of people saying Lukaku's first touch is awful, he's a flat track bully and all that kind of stuff, but he was playing for Everton, and look where Everton are now, the fact that he's left. So then you kind of got to think, well, they're now in the relegation zone. Lukaku's left, Rooney's replaced him. So clearly it's had a massive effect on that club, the fact that he's left because of the goals that he brings to them. Okay, he's not scoring against the big teams. Okay, his hold-up play's not been fantastic and his first touch has been a bit squiffy. but you're only as good as your delivery into your feet and onto your head. And to be honest with you, the fact that we haven't really got anyone with width who can cross, like a Perisic or even Pereira to a degree, Lukaku is amazing in the air. And the trouble is we haven't really got any delivery there at the moment. It's the same problem as last season with Ibrahimovic. You need someone who can hold up the play. If Ibra was to play next to Lukaku, Ibra's hold-up play is so much better than Lukaku's. You could almost imagine them working quite well in tandem. But I don't see Jose using two players up top with those two because of the height. He usually likes, players with different attributes. Lukaku is a very, very, very good striker. I guarantee when it comes to the international break, he'll probably score a couple of goals again. His Belgian record is very, very good. And, we do need those goals. Had he not been playing in those games where we scored like 4 goals or whatever, we wouldn't have the points we have on the table anyway. So you take Lukaku out of the squad. Are you really going to rely on just Rashford at the moment? Are you really going to rely on just Rashford and Martial and have them in the same team? No. So I think it's unfair for people to just get on Lukaku's back and say he's not good enough or his first touch is this, that, and whatever. Because without him, we wouldn't be second in the table anyway.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think, I wouldn't swap Lukaku for Morata now. I did want Morata in the summer up until we signed Lukaku. My point is, he's a good striker, but I'm not going to start giving Lukaku criticism because I don't think that actually helps us that much in the situation we're in at the moment. And I do think that United are struggling from an exhausted midfield and an effective number 10. And ultimately, when you've got that, you are going to struggle. I mean, we had 1 shot on target up until the 90th minute against Chelsea. And I think we're woefully ill-equipped. As Ross said, we haven't got the squad. A few key injuries and we do struggle. And the midfield and the number 10 really do dictate how you attack a side. We've got Newcastle and Brighton when we come back. I think we'll take 6 points from those games. And then we face Arsenal away and City at home. And we might lose those games and be back where we are now. But I think that is what I personally think the future for Manchester United will be 2 steps forward, 1 back. It's still progress. As Ross said, from where we've come from, it's still progress. But I think as Manchester United fans, we want better progress. And I certainly do think there's an argument to have that maybe we should be making better progress than we are. But I think a lot of that is to do with, I don't think Mourinho has an open checkbook like Pep does. And Pep's done very well with it, obviously. And also, I still think, Ross, that look, so many people say you're so up Mourinho's backside, you've got to put some blame on him, and of course he is the manager, but I just saw today that first 10 minutes, that's not the manager. It's not the manager who stops them winning the second ball, who gives the ball away, who wander out of position. That must infuriate him. If I'm being nitpicky, and I have seen a lot of people saying this, I do, and I always have said that as much as he deserved applauding for being back in training yesterday, when Marouane Fellaini is pretty much your go-to guy and your hold-up guy that you publicly back and say, he can slice bread with his hair, he's brilliant. I still stand by that is not good enough. That isn't good enough, and that is where Mourinho makes a mistake. The Fellainis, the Lingards, the Ashley Youngs. Ashley Young today looked like a 32-year-old who used to play on the wing. He didn't look like a left-back, and I just wonder, there's clearly a fallout with Luke Shaw, but people want to pick on Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw's a better left back than Ashley Young, and I'll argue that with anybody. Ashley Young's done very well recently, but he looks like a 32-year-old winger today. Phil Jones is a good centre back, but he did what many of us know will happen. I think Smalling. I like Smalling. He got away with it a couple of times, dragging shirts and getting pulled out of position. Ultimately, I think that is where Mourinho is a bit culpable. I still think that this squad is infected with average players.
It is, and I don't know if Jose sometimes picks players to kind of turn around to Woodward and Co and say, come on guys, this is what I'm working with here, because there's no way on hell on earth that Jose thinks Jesse Lingard is good enough. I'm not having a guy at the player, I quite like the guy, but there's no way that he thinks he's good enough for Manchester United. Jose Mourinho has managed Real Madrid, Inter Milan, 2 Chelsea sides. The personnel he has managed is unbelievable. He's seen talent and he's managed talent, and he will know that Jesse Lingard doesn't have a lot of talent. He'll know that. So sometimes I think that he's just literally trying to work with what he's got. He knows his squad's really thin. He will know that, and he's trying to get the best out of what he's got. And it isn't working to a point, but to another point it is, because it's all that he has. And maybe we are overachieving for what we have. Maybe we overachieved last season. You know, there's all these arguments, and I still back him. I think that mistakes have been made, but come on, what manager doesn't make mistakes? You know, Alex Ferguson sold Jaap Stam, for crying out loud. We all make mistakes. So mistakes will be made. But I think ultimately we all must believe that he will win us the Premier League, and I don't doubt that for a second. The thing that worries me this season is the lure of the Champions League, because Jose Mourinho loves a run in the Champions League, and I think we'll go far in that competition. I think it would be quite detrimental to us in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, as we look over the next 2 weeks, Draughty, we've got hopefully Pogba back. Zlatan, I think, will be back by the start of December. 2 big players, 2 superstars. Do you? I mean, picking up on that last, then January, potentially we could do some business there. Do you think United will? I certainly think he will want to win a cup, and I think it will be the League Cup again. Do you see him prioritising the Champions League over the league?
Probably not. And the reason I say that is because he's then taking a massive risk. If he doesn't win the Champions League, and it doesn't look likely, and just supposing the league top 4 is a little bit in question, supposing we got to the final of the Champions League, we lost and we ended up 5th in the league, then it's a disaster, because we wouldn't be back in the Champions League next season. So I can't see him prioritising the Champions League over the Premier League, if I'm honest. I agree with you, he'll probably go for the League Cup. Can I just say, Bristol City isn't going to be as easy as you think.
Crap team, absolutely shoddy team now.
Trust me, Ross, you don't know like I know him. But it's a case of, if he wants to go for the League Cup, that's fine. But again, I don't think the fans are going to be too happy with just the League Cup. I think we'll probably go for the FA Cup, if I'm honest. He might prioritise that over other competitions, but Champions League over Premier League, no. Although I will say he's probably got this nagging thing of he wants to get 5 to get one, on level terms with Liverpool. That might be one thing, because they always go on about 5 times. Maybe he does want to kind of even up terms there, possibly.
Yeah, and I think Draughty just touched on a really important thing there, Ross. We're not blind. There are comments tonight, and don't forget, Skype Goldbridge tomorrow night at 8 o'clock is your chance to phone in and have your say, and I'm sure a lot of you will do. But I'm not blind to the comments. A lot of people are starting to get annoyed by Mourinho. I don't like to see it, but it's fan opinion. Is that a concern for you, Ross, as a fan of Mourinho? Is that a concern? We know what the press are going to do tomorrow. They will twist it into a way that, his future's in danger, fans are fed up with his style of play and this, that and the other. They will definitely jump on it. We know that there are growing, I still think it's a minority, but that it is growing, people becoming disillusioned with him. Is that a concern for United?
I don't think so. I really don't. I think... Look, when he was at Chelsea, he lost the dressing room, it was clear. And that's because they have mercenary players and mercenary fans. And I think the majority of United fans, we know how to back a manager. And do you know what? We cluelessly backed Van Gaal for way too long. And to be honest, I think Moyes got about 6 months too long as well. I think we're right to back him. And I don't really have any concerns going forward. Look, it's... Overall, the Huddersfield result makes this look pretty poor. But to be honest, what did we get? 4 points out of a possible 9 out of the some big 3 clubs. Is average. I get it, but it's not horrendous at all. It's an away loss at Chelsea, which is not the worst result in the world. It's away from home. If it was at home, I'd be like, yeah, dreadful. But Chelsea are a very, very good team, and sometimes we take that away from them a little bit. So no, I'm confident, and like you say, we'll probably pick 6 points up from our next 2 games and score, shed loads of goals doing it, and all of a sudden the happy times are back. So you have to ride out the storms in the season. And I remember feeling like this under Ferguson sometimes. We'd go on a little run where we'd have 3 results and wouldn't go our way. You'd start to question the man, and then all of a sudden you snap out of it a few weeks later. And it's kind of just what's happening under Mourinho, I think.
Yeah, I think it's not helped by the fact that Man City have just got all their cards in place. Mourinho obviously doesn't like Pep. We don't like Man City. And the way they run their club is, there's your checkbook. What do you need to win the title? And at Manchester United, pretty much since the Glazers have been there, it's never been, there's your checkbook. What do you need to win the title? It doesn't work like that, and it makes it very, very hard. But interesting few weeks ahead. Anyway, we've blitzed through everything we wanted to do. And in the interim, I have been typing away, so apologies for that. Please do drop a like on the video. It's great to have Drawty and Ross on tonight. But, without further ado, you can see a link in the video description which says fan cams. The fan cams are up. I have sort of been watching and listening in between the show. There's some real angry reactions on there. So the fan cams are up. Link in the video description, or go to the homepage. Some really interesting fan opinion for you to go and watch there now. Thanks for coming on, Drawty.
Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. Nice to get you back on. And the Drawty Devil on Twitter. Just type that in. And Ross, thanks again for coming on.
Cheers, Mark. Thanks for having me again.
No
Cheers, Drawty. It's been a few months.
It's been a while. I've been a bit busy, mate.
It is.
@Hazza90 on Twitter, at HAZZA90 on Twitter. But please, Flex has been out in the cold in London after a bad result with a load of Cockneys baiting him. So do watch the fan cams. There's some really good reactions there. The link is in the video description. It says fan cams, then there's a link. Just click it. It will take you straight through to the playlist. They're a couple of minutes long. Watch a few of them, or you can go through the homepage. But please, there's about 1,800 of you watching now. So even if half of you just pop over and watch the fan cams and support them, that would be really appreciated. Tomorrow night, we are live at 8 o'clock with Skype Goldbridge. We want you lot phoning in, give us your thoughts. Lots to discuss over this international break. And we've got lots of shows planned. Some of them, more important than others now after a disappointing loss. But get on the fan cams, give us your thoughts, and enjoy what you can from this weekend. I'll speak to you all tomorrow. Cheers, lads.
Cheers, mate.
No worries.